Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Canary Room. Coming up on the show today, well, as always, plenty to look forward to. We will check in very quickly with the Norwich in the Norwich notebook. A little bit of heartache with the Norwich this week. This is always the case, I'm sure. We'll also look at the native diaries as well. Some interesting developments in the native diaries. Bird of the week returns, so have a look at that. And the main thrust of the show is around the selection of the show team for the Fife Canary Show season. Before we get into that, my thank yous. So first, thank you. It's a very special thank you. Toby, who watches the show with his dad, Darren, the Ashpoles. My thanks to you, Toby, for what is an almost lifelike picture of me. I'm absolutely delighted. This came through. Darren sent it through to me on Messenger, and I was made up. In fact, I put a check shirt on especially to acknowledge it. So, Toby, I'm glad you enjoy the show, and thanks for the picture, mate. Really, really enjoyed it. Thanks to those people as well who have made very kind, very generous donations to the show. You know who you are, but you know what? You deserve a name check because it really is appreciated. We've got, of course, our mate Mike Burling from Down Under. Mike started his season, his Canary season, and that seems to be going well. So, Mike, fingers and toes and everything else crossed for all your mate here from the Canary Room. Andy Johnson, thank you, Andy, much appreciated. Beethoven Dellison, John Dowling, Will O'Donovan, thanks chaps, and Danny Antonio. Danny, over in the US, really appreciate it. Very kind of you, mate. If you're able to, donate button is on the channel. As always, everyone, grab yourself a cuppa, sit back, and enjoy the show. We are a week away from the first show that we'll be going to as with our Fifes at least, and that's at Stafford. Now, many of you will have been at Stafford. We will be there, so we'll be filming it. We'll see how the birds do on the bench. It's their first run out, so they'll do. It'll be the first time in a show environment, really. So we'll see how they get on. When it comes to selecting the show team, well, last episode we focused quite a bit on show training, and that show training very much continues. And over the course of the last couple of weeks, you can see now the majority of the cages have got the top hat drinkers on. What I've also been doing is popping every other day or so, popping a little bit of broccoli in there, both on the stock cages and also on the show cages on the staging, just to get the birds used to popping their heads through and trying to get the water. And that critical element of being able to get the water is really part of the show. What I have been doing as well is I've been leaving the birds on the staging that I've got in the room now for a little bit more time. In fact, around about 3 and 4 hours at a time. So one lot of birds will get a morning session, one lot of birds will get an afternoon session, and so they're away from their stock cages. They'll find the water in that time. They'll get used to finding the seed. I've got little finger drawers in the show cages as well. I'm putting a few little tidbits in there too, just to give them something extra as they're in the cages. The selection of the show team is, one of the most challenging, one of the most kind of enjoyable things, really. It's a culmination of, 12 months of work. So the pairings from last year, the birds that we put together, looking to try and breed a quality, a standard of Fife Canary and other type of canary in the room as well, that would compete on an exhibition platform. Now, the selection of the show team is it's quite an interesting thing, really, and it evolves throughout the season. So the first thing that we do, we look at the classification. Now, I'm a champion exhibitor of the Fife Fancy Canary, and because I have that status, and I have that status based on the length of time that I've kept the Fife Canary. So I am deemed as a champion, and that's important. It's nothing to do with how well I've done on the show bench, although I've done quite well on the show bench, but it is all to do with the length of time that I have served. So there are champion, novice and junior statuses in the Fife section. So I am classed as a champion, and then there is a classification list, and essentially that classification list is split into a number of different colour specials. So the first classification is clears, and within there we have clear yellow cocks, clear buff cocks, clear yellow hens and clear buff hens. And then the classification goes down into 10% to lightly variegated, and then variegated, and then heavily variegated, and then self, which is the self green birds. Then we've got the cinnamon classifications, and they are variegated and heavily variegated, often in the same class. And then self cinnamon, again of yellow and buff. And then we've got the allied to white classifications, and in the allied to white classifications we've got clear whites, we've got variegated whites, we've got heavily variegated whites, we've got self blues, and we've got fawns. So a huge number of classifications to start with, and for our selection of the show team, that's our stepping off point. What does the show classification look like? Then, as we look at the birds, we're looking at the birds, and they're, as we've seen before, they're in single cages. There's 2 birds in each cage. In some cages there's just 1 single bird. We've got them singled off. I've got 2 rows of darks here. I've got some older cocks at the top that I'll keep for next year. And then I've got 2 rows of light birds. And then just behind the camera, I've got the cinnamon and the allied to white birds. And I've got some dark birds and a couple of clears there as well, because I've ran out of room on this wall. So all of the birds are here, and I'm training them all. One of the things that we need to look for when we're selecting our show team is birds that meet the model. Now, there's a balance to be struck here, and there's a degree of pragmatism and realism that's required. I've kept Fife Canaries now for 20 odd years. In that time, I have never, hand on heart, bred a bird that is the model. I've bred birds that have got lots of the desirable features of the model. In fact, my entire stud is bred and aimed towards the model, but there is not one bird in my shed, and there has never been a bird in my shed that is an exact representation of the model. In my mind, as a judge, the model has yet to be achieved. We've got people who are breeding very close to the model, people who are breeding birds that are, almost there, but in my mind, nobody has achieved the model. So the first thing when we select our show team is, what are the characteristics that we're looking for? At the moment, up on the show bench, I've got a number of clear and lightly marked buff cock birds. Those buff cock birds are not 4 1/4 inches long. That's the first requirement. If I look at the standard of points on the Fife Canary, size. A Fife should be a diminutive, small bird. A buff cock, I'm looking for a short bird. I've got a couple of really nice short buff cock birds. I've got some really nice bigger buff cock birds, certainly not oversized, but not one of them is 4 1/4 inches. So the first thing is, I've got to be realistic. If I'm looking at the clear buff cocks and I'm evaluating them, I'm looking at them against the other clear buff cocks in my room. I'm looking against them against the model. As they're judged against the other clear buff cock birds on the bench. That's what I, as a judge, that's what other judges will do. We have the model in our mind, we judge what's in front of us. So as I look at the clear buff cocks, I'm looking for shortness, I'm looking for shape, I'm looking for a nice, good, strong head, I'm looking for a good rise on the back, I'm looking for roundness across the shoulders, I'm looking for good position. What I'm also looking for when I think about the classifications is strength in depth. So my first show, which will be Stafford, I've entered 16 birds into. Our next episode, we'll have a look at how those birds got on, and we'll look at our preparation for the show, and hopefully that will stand you in good stead for the show season ahead. I'm looking at those birds, and I'm looking at how close they are to being really good buffcocks. Are they an example of really good clear buffcock? And I will go through my various birds. I'll look at the clear yellow birds, cocks and hens. I'll focus on some of the cock birds. I'll look at them, and I'm looking for strength in depth. What I might do is only enter one bird. So in the clear cock classification, as an example, I've entered one. I've got 3 clear yellow cocks, all of very good quality. A couple are a little bit better than maybe the third, but they've all got a quality about them. They could all perform. They will all make the show team. When it comes to selecting the show team, I'm looking at the classifications, but I'm also looking at the colours, and I'm splitting things down. I'm looking at a team within the colours. So within the clear classifications, I've got a team of clear buff hens, might have 3, 4 clear buff hens I could show. Clear yellow hens, I might have 3 clear yellow hens I could show. Clear buff cocks, there's 2 or 3 clear buff cocks I could show. And clear yellow cocks, there's 2 or 3 clear yellow cocks I could show. So there's a team there, if I add them up very quickly in my head, of 10 or 11 birds. I will not enter them all at the same show. I will enter maybe 1 or 2 in each classification. And I will choose in the run-up to the show, based on the overall fitness, based on how that bird is, based on its performance maybe at a previous show, which bird I'll take. Some of the birds are still finishing off the molt. Some of the birds won't be ready for the earlier shows. I've got a very nice, shapely, clear buff cock bird. As we look at this shot, it's the bird to the right. That bird will certainly make the show team, but maybe not make it until the end of October, the beginning of November. When I think about some of the blues and some of the fawn birds, they're not quite ready yet. They might make an earlier show, they might not make the show bench until the end of October, early November. One of the things I will consider, particularly with the hens, is the number of run-outs that a bird will get. So a hen, I certainly wouldn't look to show more than 3 times across the show season. Its value to me, yes, is as a show team, but its greater value to me is a breeding bird. And that's one of the other things that I'll consider and that I'll think about. When I look at the heavily variegated and the self birds, actually, as I evaluate the stud this year, I've bred a number of heavily variegated birds. I've bred fewer self birds. My first show, I don't have a self bird entered. I have 6 heavily variegated birds. As I look at the 4 classes in heavily variegated, the heavily variegated yellow cock, the heavily variegated buff cock, the heavily variegated yellow hen, the heavily variegated buff hen, I have 3 or 4 very nice heavily variegated yellow cocks. I have 2 or 3 very nice heavily variegated yellow hens, a couple of young ones that have got quite a long way still to go. I've got a very strong team of heavily variegated buff cocks. For the first show, I've entered 2. I've got 5 that I could pick from. I've looked at them and looked at them again and looked at them again and changed my mind on several occasions as to which one will make the team. And I will do that right up until the day before the show. And then, and only then, will I judge which bird will make it. So when it comes to selecting the show team, for me, it's very much about looking at the classifications. It's very much looking at the colours as a group of colours. I've got 2 visual cinnamon birds this year. both are buffs, both will be shown, but that means that at some shows I won't have a cinnamon. At some shows I won't have an allied to white. I will look at the various different shows, I'll look at the fitness of the bird, I'll look at the health of the bird, I'll look at what I want to achieve, and I'll make a decision. But it's teams within a team. I'm limited to the number of birds that I want to take, that I can manage to take, because preparing a bird for the show team, preparing a bird for a show bench, preparing the show cages, it takes time. My first show team, 16 birds. Whether all 16 go or not remains to be seen. I'll evaluate their health on the day. What I won't do is take a bird that's not 100%. Its value to me is worth far more in the shed. So my top tips really, think about your show team as a team within a team. Think about the colours that you've got, think about the strength in depth that you've got. You know, if I've got 4 really good, 5 really good heavily variegated buff cocks, I might enter 2. I might rotate the 2 that go each show. I might put one in, it might not perform, it might not work on the show bench despite the training it's had, and so next time round I might put a different one in. Where I've only got one bird in that colour, then I won't overshow it, even if it does really well. The temptation if a bird does really well is to keep showing and keep showing and keep showing it. It won't do the bird any good. The show season for me is going to be over 2 months this year. It's going to be in October and it's going to be in November. I've got 3 judging engagements. I'll attend probably 11 shows during that time, and we'll catch up with all of them right here on the Canary Room. That's my guide to selecting the showing team. I hope it's been some use for you. It's time now to have a look at this week's Bird of the Week. This week's Bird of the Week is one of our Fife show team. It's a clear yellow hen. A number of you have got in touch with the channel and sort of, talked about doing ones to watch and which birds that we'll look for across the show team. And I've thought long and hard about it, and I'd kind of like to do that, but at the same time, what I don't want to be open to is trying to influence people. A clear yellow bird is quite hard to distinguish, which is why I've picked a clear up. If I'd use one of the heavily variegateds or variegated birds, it can be easily distinguishable, and I don't want anybody to to feel either under pressure to place the bird positively or negatively in knowing that it's mine. So this week's Bird of the Week is a clear yellow hen. It's a sweet little thing. Certainly, size-wise, it's exactly where I want it to be. Type and position-wise, it's where I want it to be. It'll do with steadying down. To give you an idea, clear yellow hen classification, there could be somewhere up to 40, 50, even 60 birds in the class. So what does success look like in that? Well, success looks like getting in the first 7. To win the class of a big show with a clear yellow hen is no mean feat, because those classes are very, very strong classes, big volume, strong classes. So this week's Bird of the Week, little clear yellow hen. The native diaries this week is kind of a quick check-in. We will have a look at one of the polls in a minute. The bullfinches of couple of the over-year ones, certainly one of the over-year hens looks a little bit tatty still, but the rest of them have got lovely feather on them, really nice. I haven't colour-fed them. Intentionally. I have no intention of showing them. The younger birds, they've had sort of natural things, rowan berries, blackberries, blueberries. They eat better than I do, the bullfinches. And one of the cocks certainly taken some really nice colour on. You'll recall previous episodes talking about, I've got, I had a trio of bullfinches. You'll remember I had the pair that bred the 4 young, and then I had the 2 hens from last year. One I used as a mewling pair. What I'm going to do this year is make up at least 3 pairs, possibly 4. So I have managed to acquire another bullfinch cock from my original source. So I'll be picking that up at some stage over the show season. And that's I'm looking forward really to bringing that in and making at least 3 pairs. I've got another couple of conversations that are ongoing at the moment to see whether I can swap one of the other cocks and then make that 4 pairs of bullfinches. And that really is where I'd like to get to if I can. If it's just the 3, then it's just the 3, and that will be the sort of plans for next year. Siskins and Goldies, well, you never like to say too much with the Siskins and Goldies, to be honest. They are, coming through the molting den, almost finished now. Almost finished. So we've got, again, calls have been made. Birds have been ordered. A Goldie cock is on order at the moment. And I'm hoping that will come in. And when it does, it should be a fine specimen. So more of that to look forward to on a later show. And then with the red poles, well, I've just had the DNA sexing kit come through. So I will be plucking feathers, a couple of feathers, and having them DNA sexed. So the young birds that I've got, the over-year birds in the normals, they're now showing their red chests. So they've been colour fed and they are showing their red chests. The other birds are obviously this year's bred. There's cobalts in there, there's pieds in there, there's silvers in there. I think the cinnamon sex link, so I think that is going to be a hen. But the other birds are going to be DNA sex, just so I know, and then I know what I can keep and what I can move on. And that will be plan as things stand at the moment with the red poles is to keep 3 or 4 pairs of poles, 3 or 4 pairs of bullies, maybe a pair of siskins, maybe a pair of goldies, normal native goldies, not the Siberian ones. So that's kind of where the plans with the natives are shaping up at the moment. I've got the flight outside, which I might look to put a pair of linnets in, or I might try and cage breed the linnets and put a pair of poles outside, or maybe even a pair of the bullies. Still to be decided. We'll talk ourselves in and out of that on numerous occasions. So native diaries at the moment, it's quite a quiet time. Many fanciers will tell you, we just want that molt to finish and the birds to have come through it in a real strong manner. And that's, the same very much in here. And the same is very much true of the Norwich notebook. So without further ado, let's check in on the Norwich. I said almost tongue-in-cheek, slightly jesting, when it came to the Norwich earlier on in the year that they were going to replace the red poles for heartache. I was tongue-in-cheek, but they have replaced the red poles for heartache. So just today, as we've been filming this morning, the white hen, so the last remaining white that we had, we lost. And I guess it's frustrating on so many counts. I didn't breed from it. That's the first count. It's frustrating. Allied birds are often sort of genetically a little bit weaker. I don't know the reason why. It just seems to be the case. But it's gone. So I can't do anything about it. It's part of livestock. It doesn't make it any easier to deal with, but it is just part of what we have to deal with. So Norwich-wise, I've got some, I've almost got to rebalance some of my plans now. So one of the other interesting things is that there is an awful lot of yellow birds that I've got. So I've got 2 flighted yellow cockbirds, and then of the 5 young Norwich that I've got, 3 of them are yellow, and I've only got 1 over-year buff cockbird. So I don't really have. I thought I had 1 buff hen, although it's been warbling like mad this morning. But I do know Norwich do that. There's a lot of singing hens. I've got a couple of the yellows that I'd like to hope are hens. One I'm more confident than the other. What I thought I'd do is just show you the buff cock from last time round. So I've got it side by side. So this is sort of 2 weeks apart from filming. You can see it starting to fill in around the face, which is good. Again, the colour, different colour in the flesh than I've managed to capture on film. I'm quite happy with the way the colour's finished off. Certainly, the peppering method seems to have done a really good job. It's not too patchy. I don't think I'm going to show it. I'm not 100% certain yet whether I'm going to show it or not, but look at the 2 things side by side. And then this is a yellow that I've bred as well, which I think there's quite a lot to like about this bird. I really do. I think it's quite a nice bird. So I'll see with this. Of course, I want it to be a hen. I don't think it is. I'd really like it if it was. But I have made plans. I've made plans to bring in some birds from Keith this year. So look forward to bringing them in and really stepping the Norwich on. Quite pleased with the quality I've bred this year. Not huge volumes, but always quality over volume for me. So that's on Norwich Notebook. No new colour corners this week. They're coming on nicely through the molt, but to be honest with you, I showed you that last time out, so there's not a great deal to see with them. So that's all about it. So time for us to say our goodbyes. Over the next couple of months, the show will take a slightly different twist. So we will be doing a couple of on the roads. We've got 3, at least 3, probably 4 penciled in. So keep an eye out on the Facebook page of the frequency of episodes, because although the Canary Room is fortnightly, we may have a couple, as we have done in the past, where we run on consecutive weeks. It will, of course, all come down to my time and ability to be able to edit them and get them out quickly enough to you. We will be on the road a lot. We'll be looking and catching up with an awful lot of Fife shows and other shows. So if you see me at any of the shows, come and say hello. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit the subscribe button if you've enjoyed this. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and anytime there is a new episode of the Canary Room, you will get notification of it. As always, everyone, until next time, take care.